Thank you very much, Jenna. Continue our conversation with the Executive Director of the Mennonite Central Committee, Ron Janzen, joining us. One of the programs that they support is called Global Families. And through that program, Ron actually got to take a trip to a place that's going to surprise a lot of people when it comes to the inherent risks, Cambodia and Laos. Let's talk about why, of all the places that MCC helps around the world, why you ended up in Cambodia and Laos.
We went to Cambodia and Laos in early February. We went with a group of 10 people from Manitoba. It's a learning tour. Learning tours are something that MCC does regularly, and we host it in different host provinces, inviting members of the constituency to come out and have a live interaction with MCC's programs. We've been in Cambodia and Laos since the early 70s, working in those countries, particularly in response to some very tragic circumstances of war in both of those countries. In Cambodia, one of the defining things about the country is that tragic period with the dictatorship of Pol Pot. And in Laos, there's a very tragic history of bombing, a 9-year bombing campaign that took place from 64 to 73. Both of those things are epic in those two countries, and MCC has been working in those countries since the early 70s.
And now, but since then, the danger, we talk about it happened in the 70s, and Pol Pot is now gone and the bombing has now ended, but the danger is still there. How big is the risk?
Yeah. So when we were in Laos, one of the things that we were doing was connecting with global family programs in the country. We were looking at our work in public schools, and one of the days we were out in a remote village in Laos. In this village, I met a farmer who is working with MCC on sustainable agriculture projects. And we're talking to this farmer, and as we were talking about his work with fruit tree growing, which is one of the practices that provides sustainable income and supplementary income to rice paddy farming. And we were having a good conversation about that. But when I asked him about his land, he said he was actually working on land that was not cleared land. What he meant by that was that this was land that had not been cleared of unexploded ordnance.
So at one point it had been, during that 9-year period, it had been bombed heavily, and now he's out there plowing, knowing that there could be bombs, that there almost likely are, several bombs still buried in his fields.
That's right, it's kind of unbelievable to think about, but from 1964 to 1973, the U.S. dropped about 260 million bombs on the border between Laos and Vietnam, trying to contain the Viet Cong Party from coming across the border into Southeast Asia through Laos. So it was a very intensive campaign, lasted 9 years. These bombs were small bombs about the size of a fist. They're called bombies, and many, many millions of them are still unexploded and in the land. So this farmer, when he said his land had not been cleared, I asked him as we were talking if he knew of anybody in his family or his community who had been affected by these bombs. Had anybody been maimed or killed? And what really stunned me was that when I asked him that question, and he was a fellow who was very shy, didn't make a lot of eye contact.
Right.
When I asked him that question, he looked right at me and he simply said 2 words. He said, "Not yet." And I thought about those 2 words, and those 2 words just consumed me in the weeks after that, and I could not understand, what does it feel like to go out every day to work your land and have this thought of not yet? Could happen at any time.
Could be him, could be his machinery, it could be his children.
Yeah.
You're going to hang around, thank you very much, and spend a little more time talking about the Mennonite Central Committee, and we're also going to talk about how an experience like that changes you, and we'll talk about some art that was made because of that experience. We've got that and more coming up on a special edition of our Community Spotlight today on BT.
You practice what you preach, and would you turn the other